Happy New Year! Oh wait, it's March. I've been promising you a new Word of the Year video for a couple months. It's finally here! Hey, and welcome back to Keeping Your Heart, the place where we explore ways that we can keep our hearts open and engaged as we're walking alongside others. My name is Renee, and I'm so glad that you're here. If this is your first time, welcome! So glad you've joined us. Please feel free to subscribe below, click the little bell so that you can be notified anytime new videos go up or I go on live. If this is not your first time and you haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and subscribe down below. So Keeping Your Heart, again, is about all the ways that we can keep our hearts engaged as we're walking alongside others. So that means if we are a caregiver of someone who's experienced trauma or is chronically ill or requires additional levels of care, it can be a slog. So this is a part of the exploration of how do we stay sustained in the practice of keeping on with them and making sure that we don't fall victim to compassion fatigue and secondary trauma. We engage in self-care practices. So this channel is about some of those different ways that we can do it. So we've looked at self-care practices like frou-frou stuff that takes care of all this. We've looked at organization, we've looked at decluttering. So I've been on the bullet journal journey for quite a while, and I have shared some of my monthly layouts, weekly layouts, daily layouts, and other spreads with you throughout the last few months. So I've kept promising you this video about how to do a new Word of the Year, and here we are in March. So maybe it's about time to do that. I wanted to go through with you some of the process of how I selected the word and the different things that I looked at to help me settle on how I was going to handle it for 2019. So let's get into it. So I looked at a couple of different resources online to see if I could find something that was already in use. And I found a couple that were really helpful for me and then cobbled together my own process. So I will link those down in the description below because I always want to give a shout out to those resources that have been very helpful to me. And then I want to go through the steps with you. Okay, so the first step is to take some time to sit down, carve out however much time it is that you think that you might need for this, maybe half an hour, maybe an hour. So yes, it is precious time, but it's really helpful if you are looking for a way to focus your energies and remind yourself to come back to the one thing for the year. What is the thing that you need to use as your lens to remind yourself, this is what's going to help me to focus and carry me through the year. What is my goal? What is my thing that I want to focus on? Sitting down and taking that time, and then just take a moment and think. Contemplate, if I was looking for something, what is the thing that I might need this year? And use your notepad and write some things down. What comes to mind immediately? What things are immediately surfacing for you to consider as the focus for the year? Step 2, ask yourself, what could I use more of in my life? So, okay, for some of us, time, money, space. So looking through your life and saying, what could I use more of this year? What types of things could I use? More peace, more rest, more sleep, more excitement, more spontaneity, those types of things. So taking time to write those down, what could you use more of in your life? Step number 3, what could you use less of in your life? What things are you ready to let go of? What things are you ready to not see anymore? So really looking at what did last year look like, or what did the last 12 months look like, and what things could you use less of? What things do you want to move away from? So step 4, and I really like this question, and I hadn't thought of it before, so I was really glad for the resource that had this. And the question is, what characteristics would I like to have? Not my circumstances, not the things surrounding me in my life, but what characteristics would I like to inhabit for the next 12 months? What type? I think this is a great thing for us to be able to look at to examine what we want to become more like, what we want to move toward, and what things we need to release. So number 5, I really like. There is a creator of material for record keeping and cultivating a good life called Becky Higgins. And she's the Project Life lady. I followed her throughout the years and some of her projects. And one of the most important lessons that I learned from her was to begin with the end in mind. So when I'm looking at a project, when I'm looking at a process, I want to look at where do I hope to get to, and then move backwards. So this is where 2 questions come in for you, okay? The first part is, by the end of the day, how am I feeling? And then how do I want to feel? Because if we think about what's not working, what is not sustaining us to get to the end of the day to feel the way that we want to feel, we need to change how we're starting the day and what our focus is for the day. I think this is a brilliant strategy and something I hadn't thought about before, that I need to set my intention, which is ridiculous because I'm a yoga instructor, but I hadn't thought about my word of the day being so intentional. I thought of it as this lens, but I hadn't thought about it as the ending. How do I want to begin so I can get to this ending? I think that's great. So that's number 5, those 2 questions. Number 6, this is the part where you look at your answers and you start to look for patterns. What is it that you're seeing from part to part to part? So in that exploration, maybe rewriting some of the lists of words out, maybe seeing if the one or more words comes up more often than the other. What is it that you are seeing that your thought process has explained to you that you need to do for your year? This is really helpful. And maybe you're checking in. If this is a family word of the year, maybe you need to kind of take this to other people that you are in this journey with and discuss it and say, well, as a group, what do we want to get to at the end of the year? What would be helpful for us? How do we want to end our days? What is the way that we would like to end our days? And that could be the way that you discuss this. So however that process goes, then you're going to start to look for patterns. I'm going to share a little bit about how I went through this. When I looked at the first question of what could I use more of in my life, I had 8 things listed. Some of these I would focus on and think of those as high energy things, and some of them were more neutral, and some of them were less energy. So I ended up putting arrows and marks by those to look at, oh, it seems to me if I have these 8 things, and 5 of them are focusing on more energy, that's something I should pay attention to. And as you can see, under what could I use less of in my life, I put things like wasted time, blocked thoughts, and sorrow. So clearly what I wanted, those were all less energy types of things, or things that weren't frustrating. And so I wanted things that had a little more high energy. We saw number 3, what characteristics would I like to have? I had focused, content, peaceful, and steady. So I would consider those words maybe a little more neutral or grounded or centered and not very driven. So that was interesting to me too, that those are the characteristics I would like to have, but that what I needed more of in my life is moving forward or high energy, and I was distressed a little bit about the low energy that I was feeling. And that plays out in this part of, by the end of the day, I was feeling tired and unfulfilled and sad, and how I wanted to feel was fulfilled, content, full, and peace. I was definitely responding to having felt over a series of days, months, weeks, maybe even years, that I was having low energy, that I wasn't feeling fulfilled. So what things did I need to change in my life in order not to feel that way by the end of the day? So I looked at the word fulfilled online and looked at a thesaurus and some of the other words that were in the category of fulfilled, and realized that some other themes of that were contentment, discipline, vitality, and embrace. And then it was super interesting to me, because when I had sat down with that first step and thought of, okay, what word am I looking at for the year? Embrace was one of the words that came to me, and I thought, oh, that's really weird. Why embrace is such an active word, but it's also sort of nebulous. So what does that mean? the more I thought about it and the more I realized embrace doesn't necessarily drive me to a place, and it can take energy, but it's also grounding. There is something that was missing. So what I realized is that each month I needed to embrace a particular thing. So as you can see, each month I have selected a different focus word to embrace. So for January, it was embrace drive. Make it okay that I really want to get things done and make plans and do all the things. Do all the things! But in February, it was time for me to embrace connection. So I focused a lot on connecting with people in real life, in notes, online, digging deeper into those relationships of those around me and investing in them and letting people know how important that they were. In March, embrace focus. So back to the grind again, focusing down. This is the month where I really worked on production schedules and making sure that my planner was in order, which is the whole reason I finally got to this video, was that I embraced focus. So you can see that each month has an ebb and flow between something that is forward and something that is back. So I can get a nice balance of moving forward and then coming back for rest, coming back for connection, and moving back and forth. So that rhythm, finding a balance in the give and take of life, in the work-life balance, right? For both of those. So that is a great way to maybe consider choosing your word of the year. And if you need to be extra like me, then you're gonna get a word of the year and of the month. Oh well. So there's my process. I hope it was worth the wait for the video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this, please give a thumbs up. If you have any questions down below, or if you've chosen your word of the year already and this is working with already, and you are way ahead of the curve and not 2 months behind, I would love to hear what your word is below. If this video has inspired you in any way to find that word of the year and you've selected a new one, please post it down below. I'll respond to every single comment and I'd love to connect with you. If you haven't subscribed already, you can click that little circle or the button below, or you can check out these videos about a little bit more about the bullet journaling and other things that are going on in this channel. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you next time. Don't forget to keep your heart